Hey guys, Tarke here. Today I want to do a video just all about working out what parts of your gear you need to upgrade and when, because I've reached that point now where I'm starting to get into red maps that I need to just like evaluate my gear. And obviously since I'm having to do this in SSF, this might be interesting for people doing this in SSF or also trade, or people just want to learn how to like prioritize what they need to like focus on gear wise. So I'm level 90. I recently just got my Uber Lab. I've gotten really most, if not all, of the damage I'm going to get on the tree. At this point, it's just going to be a case of like life, maybe some jewels. So I've kind of like capped out in terms of just like easy upgrades. As I said, we're starting to get some reds down, and we're kind of getting into that bit of the atlas. So maybe you might start to first hit some brick walls. I have got a 6 link, so there's no longer a case of like just get a 6 link. And I've got a level 21 main skill gem. So for a lot of people, if you haven't, and you're like playing a spellcaster, hitting that level 21 gem is probably going to be one of the most important and easiest things for you to readily fix. I always make sure that I instantly have 6 of a gem, like my main skill gem leveling, in weapon swap. This time round, I actually was leveling 11 lightning traps from level, well, end of Act 1, level 12. Because I had like a random 4 link, which is now just a cast I was taking, which I didn't need. It was just like some fluff. So I just dedicated that all to lightning traps to make sure I could get that 21 as soon as possible. I'm always a big advocate for you should Val for level 21 on your spell gem before flipping for quality. A lot of people take their gem, they flip it with the recipe as a level 20 gem, 1 GCP to the vendor to get level 1 20 quality. I'll do that with my support gems. For main gem, I need that 21 first. It's very important to me. Once I've gotten that, I can then start focusing on stuff for future builds. I'm currently leveling up a bunch of Lightning Spires next, because I will try out Lightning Spire briefly just to see how it goes. And also, if anyone playing this alongside me, don't worry, the build's still clearing fine, but it's like, this is where I'm no longer just like face rolling everything. I'm not just instantly one-shotting all the bosses, so that's why I'm like now in the let's focus on my gearing aspect. We can briefly talk about just some exciting things I got just to kind of flex. I got this randomly. This is obviously insane. This doesn't help me in terms of like progressing against like harder content. It makes me go a bit faster because I now have Onslaught, and I'm proccing that through a cast damage taken, which is very nice. But yeah, so let's just run through my gear once, then I can talk about my thought process on what I'm going to upgrade and when. So my last video, I had a very poor helmet. It was a helmet I'd picked up in Act 5 that was like 30 life, 30 mana resists, and I basically just got a strictly better version. So it had the hybrid life on there, had a good mana roll, decent resist, and I got to craft life. I'm actually quite a big fan of getting some rarity. If you can get some rarity in your gear, especially for SSF early into the league, I'm a big fan. Now this helm still could be a lot better. You can quite easily get upwards of like 120 life on a helmet, just because of how high the life rolls go with hybrid and everything. And the mana could also still, you know, it's tier 2 mana, which is good, but since mana is the primary source of my damage, getting that tier 1 is quite important, since it's primary source of my damage and my defense, since I'm using Arcane Cloak to scale most of my damage. My amulet is still a placeholder, since I'm trying to get in at Ziri's foible. We're chancing into them. But in the meantime, until I get in at Ziri's foible, I should really be trying to get an amulet with crit multi on there, since that's a very big multiplier. Now, because I know that I want to go for a different amulet later on, this would be a bad source to invest. Like, I wouldn't want to invest into getting a better amulet in the meantime, since this is just a midway stop. This is also an important thing. You need to work out which of your pieces you're going to be keeping the longest, and which pieces are like midway stops. This is a perfectly adequate amulet that will cover me until I get a foible. So while I could get a better amulet, this isn't worth me putting money into. I'll get to the weapons last. That's the main thing I'm going to be talking about in this video. This ring probably won't be upgraded for a while. I could get a much better ring with much better mana, more mana regen, stuff like that. But having that high life, having mana, having some chaos res is very important. And I currently have enough resist that I was able to craft a little bit of flat damage on there just to help my numbers a little bit. My 6 link is just a make do corrupted 6 link that happen to have the right colors, and it does have some life, some mana, a little bit of resist. It's actually like this is, well, it could obviously get a lot more flat life, a lot more flat mana. Maybe even have some cool influence mods on there. this is something I'm incredibly unlikely to replace. The only time I will ever replace this is when I eventually get my endgame chest, which will either be a Cloak of the Defiance or a Shaper Influence chest piece, because you can craft extra Mind Over Matter effect on a Shaper chest piece. And obviously it needs to be 6 linked, so that's why I'm incredibly unlikely to ever replace this. The only thing that could maybe replace it would be if I got like a +2 level Tabular or something. This I'm incredibly unlikely to replace because it gives me onslaught on hit, which means I map faster. The faster I map, the faster I will get currency, the faster I will get drops, the faster I will get upgrades. And I need dexterity somewhere in my gear. It has okay resist, it has a decent mana roll, has decent crafted life. My gloves, this is another slot that I would like to upgrade, but I'm very unlikely to upgrade since it gives me dexterity, which I need, okay mana, good resistances, and because it has the incursion flat fire against burning enemies, added damage isn't the best scaling for my build, but that's still quite a lot of damage just added on as free chunk, and you don't normally get that much damage scaling on the chest or so, sorry, on the gloves. Still quite ill, sorry. My belt, this is probably one of the main slots I want to focus on upgrading as soon as possible. You can get, I think it's up to 35% trap throwing speed on a belt through Essence of Zeal, and then there's a crafted trap throwing speed mod that you can stack together. In terms of my endgame belt, getting a Shaper influenced one with mana recovery would be really nice, but not necessary. Really, the only thing I need on a belt is that trap throwing speed, and this belt isn't serving that purpose. So while this is a good belt, giving me life, giving me resists, it only has crafted mana on there, doesn't have any cool flask mods, this is a high candidate to be replaced. This would be a good use of my money. Especially since if you look at my resistances, I'm quite over caps on lightning and fire. So actually, the lightning res I don't need, and I don't need this much fire res. So actually, this belt would be very replaceable, so that would be a very good use of my currency. My boots are really awkward. Again, if you look at my resistances, I don't actually need any of the resistances on these boots. The only thing these boots are giving me that I need is 30% movement speed, and then like very mediocre life and mana rolls, and then crafted all attributes. So this is another very high priority recraft. Now getting boots and SSF can always be a bit difficult because of how important 30% movement speed is. But this is something I'm going to be looking to upgrade. So before we get into the weapon stuff, just scanning over my gear, hopefully this should be easy for you to understand. The main pieces that is worth me investing time and currency into really looking for would be my belt, because my belt is really just offering me a life roll. That's it. It's just crafted mana, and I don't need the resistances. So this isn't doing anything for me. And as I said, we could go for double trap throwing speed, or we could even just look for a belt with good flask mods, because good flask mods will give me more defense in case of higher uptime on my utility flasks. And stuff like increased fast charges gained or reduced fast charges used, they'll give me more uptime on my Quicksilver, which give me more map clear. And then my boots could just be a much better source of defenses. I could get the actual attributes I need, since I don't need the resist on my boots. The boots could be a really good source to just get one very high, like 50 dex or like 50 strength roll, and then suddenly that would free up a bunch of other stats on other gear pieces where I could get really good damage mods. So for example, on my amulet, a big reason we're using this amulet is because it gives so many attributes, but amulets actually have a lot of very high damage things on there. Likewise with this ring as well. Like, this isn't that great of a ring, really, because if you actually look at the rolls, yeah, it gives me dex, which I need, but the mana roll isn't that high. I don't need the ES, I don't need the lightning res, and I barely need the cold res, and this is only crafted life. So this is something which would actually be a very good thing to roll over once I fix my requirements for my boots, because again, I'm incredibly unlikely to ever replace this implicit, because it's the only way I can actually get onslaught reliably as a trapper. So you can see, before we even look into weapons, if I can get better boots, and since I know there aren't suffixes I want on boots, getting my attributes fixed up, once I get that, I can then focus on recrafting my ring and trying to get some more damage and trying to get maybe some more resistances or some better life mana rolls. And then that can suddenly free up other requirements. Likewise for the belt. You would do the boots before the belt, because the belt has very specific mods I'm looking for in terms of the trap throwing speed. That requires having a bunch of specific suffixes open. And in the case of a Shaper Influence Mana Recovery belt, I need to actually get a Shaper Influence belt first. Whereas there's no like influence stuff I really need on boots. So can you see why this, to me, is the most obvious upgrade to focus on next? Now let's talk about my weapons. So I've got two perfectly adequate weapons. They are fine, just not high enough values. So we'll go with this one first. This would be the main one to prioritize upgrading. This is the weaker of my two ones. It has a hybrid spell mana roll, which is exceptionally low. It has some flat fire damage to spells, which is nice. But I need that somewhere on my gear, and it'd be much better to just have that on an Abyssal, for example. Sadly, this only adds the fire damage against burning enemies, so I still need flat fire damage somewhere to enable the burning enemies. I need that to enable my Explosive Expert node, which gives me 40 crit multi against burning enemies. But also, I can get flat fire from my ring, which is what I did here. So again, I don't actually need that mod there, so that could be completely removed. So if we actually look at this wand, it's giving me a not very good spell damage mana roll. It's giving me a flat fire roll I don't need. It's giving me a very poor crit chance roll, and then it's giving me some multi, which is nice, and then just craft design. So this is actually like a very poor wand. It's actually offering me incredibly little. So this should be a high priority replacement. This wand is also not great, but it's a lot better than this one. So this one gives me a much more reasonable spell damage roll. It gives me a decent amount of flat cold, which is enough to shatter most just trash mobs. The cast speed does nothing for me. If we didn't end up incorporating Lightning Spire Trap, then that would have some value. The mana is incredibly low. We don't need the chance to freeze. And I've also just realized I've actually crafted increased crit chance to the weapon, not spell crit, because I must have done that when I was very tired. So yeah, that really goes to show just how terrible this weapon is for me. So looking for better weapons is going to be a very high priority. Now, another thing I need to think about is, do I want to be using a shield or not? So I spoke about in my last video how I could incorporate Righteous Fire into my build if I used either a Sapphire's Frame or a Rise of the Phoenix, and since that video I've since acquired both of them. With Agnostic turned off, Rise of the Phoenix equipped, I can sustain RF, but it completely kills my life regen, and I still need to have some regen incoming. So it's not really ideal. So I don't want to do that just yet. I can support it much better with that Agnostic once I get better mana regen gear. So both of these are kind of on hold. So because there's a high chance that we might end up dropping one of my weapons, I don't need two good weapons. So really right now what I should do is I should focus on crafting one very good weapon and then just keeping the next best one. So for example, re-roll this wand and then keep this one as a placeholder until I either just happen to get another very good weapon drop for me, and then I can dual two good weapons, or I then maybe get the mana regen gear that I can then swap into the shield setup and run RF, because the Righteous Fire will apply much more damage than I would ever get from the second weapon, especially in an SSF environment when it's much harder to get two good weapons. So hopefully that whole explanation, and sorry if it was a bit disjointed, I'm not particularly with it, kind of helped you realize like how I'm focusing on what I need to upgrade. So boots, which will let me craft a better ring, which will let me focus on getting a better belt, and then my weapons. And my weapons, I don't need any of the stats on them currently, so these would be very easy for me to go through. Now, one thing that I really recommend doing, especially in SSF, whenever you pick up something which could just be seen as, like, maybe this is decent, just put it to the side. So every single weapon, and I've got all the wands, I've got all the daggers on my filter, that just seem sort of okay, I just put to the side. Now, I'm not instantly going to be looking at Path of Building and being like, okay, let's compare these two, what's good, what's bad, I've just been like, because I've just been focusing on progressing my Atlas, I've just been picking up and just putting it to the side, and I'm like, I'll look at it later. So I'm now at the point where it's now like, I need to actually like look through this and see like what we actually got our hands on here. So let's actually just quickly skim through here. And it might be a case of I've just picked up a bunch of junk and I need to actually craft one myself. And you ask, okay, but Tarke, how will you craft your own one? Like, how exactly we go about that? It'd mostly be a case of, since I haven't got any particularly good bases yet, since again we've already just started getting to reds, I don't want to spend loads of currency because I'd much rather craft on a good base. But for example, using some of my essences, where's the woe? There you go. Using some of my spell damage essences, going through those, I'd be looking through some of my fossils. We've got a decent amount of fossils. Using maybe some metallic fossils. You know, trying to go through here. So let's just look through some of the random things I've just picked up. If I remember correctly, I picked up one very nice dagger, but I had the issue of I didn't have a second good dagger to pair with it. So what have we got here? So yeah, here we've got a dagger which gives me flat cold damage to spells, which I need. It gives me a okay-ish crit chance roll. It has a global multi-roll, and it has a very nice mana roll. So this is actually like, really, let's just put these weapons to the side for now. So this is actually a really good candidate because it's got an open prefix of spell damage. So this right here could just be like, I just craft spell damage on this, and that's like, this is better than either of the two we currently have. So now we need to think, okay, do we have a second dagger that we could pair alongside this dagger? I'm also thinking I'd much rather use daggers than wands anyway, for the very important reason that I prefer how daggers look to wands from an MTX point of view. But no, in more serious, a lot of my damage is conditional, because obviously I'm a crit build. Lightning Trap does bonus crit against shock enemies. I crit on shock. And Explosive Expert gives me a bunch of bonus damage. The crit multi is against burning, so I have to have crit first. And the crit chance against shock is again against crit. So getting that first crit is very important. So having as high base crit as possible really matters. So that alone makes me kind of prioritize daggers over wands, because yes, well, the spell damage is nice. Even if the wands are better in POB from a pure numbers point of view, for like, oh, but they seem to be like 5-10% better than the daggers. The daggers are much more consistent, especially when it comes into long boss fights and your diamond flask falls off. It's very important if you're playing a crit build, especially with this league and how much you will just have long boss fights, to actually be like, okay, but how consistent is my crit once my flask falls off? So this is already looking very promising. So now let's look through our other daggers. So what do we got here? So here we've got a flat fire spells. Okay, we need that somewhere. We currently don't need it because we have it covered by a ring, but like that's a decent one. I'm also just gonna unequip this so I don't get distracted. It's got a good mana roll. It's got a good crit chance roll. Attack speed, we could maybe use some Whirling Blades Fortify action, and it's got some lightning res. So this actually, again, like, okay, if I craft spell damage on this, these two daggers would be better than what we currently have. So that's interesting. So let's put those two to the side. So that right there just, like, instantly happened to just be stuff out of my stash. Okay, we can maybe be looking at something decent there. What have we got on this one? So this one has a spell damage roll, has a lot of flat lightning. It's got a good chunk of multi. So we haven't got good spell crit craft unlocked. So, and again, getting that consistent crit chance is very important. So this one, not as great, especially since, like, you might be like, oh, but it's got the tier 1 flat lightning extra spells, that's insane. Because we have so much just, like, flat damage coming in from Arcane Cloak, like, if you look, like, we double our damage. Flat lightning becomes less impactful because of that. So that's, like, fine, but not actually that amazing. Then what have we got here? So this has got just mana regen, a little bit of lightning damage, and it's a wand, so that's not something we're interested in right now. Likewise, we're not looking at the wands. This one has mana regen, has low spell damage, okay-ish crit, and then obviously it's got a better implicit, so it's 98% crit chance. The mana regen's okay, but really we want that flat mana. Because a big flat mana roll again is this defense, but it's also damage. This one has a little bit of dex on it, which is interesting. It's only a 30% implicit compared to the others we've looked at being 40s and 50s. The flat mana on it is quite low. And yeah, that's a dud, I'm afraid. The random wand. And then what's this one? This is trash. that's absolutely awful. So I think that might have actually been a wand I had while leveling. I think that might be a random leveling wand I used because it was linked and coloured. So let's, out of interest, we were saying that these are going to be the play. Let's craft these up and let's just compare them to my current weapons. It was just going to spell damage on that one again, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay. So, it's also important that because of the way that my numbers work, let's take that off there for now. I also need to look at my numbers, not just like tooltip, just hovering tooltips. I also need to compare my numbers with my Arcane Cloak and Sigil active. Because, again, mana gives me damage. Where did I put them in here? So we'll just shove these here for now so they're out of the way. I don't get confused. So, with my 2 wands equipped, we've got 5.39 mana, 4.25 life. We have a crit chance of 26% base. We do gain power charges, and we do get all this extra against shocked. That's a pretty low base crit. So, not that great. Now, can we fix up this craft? This is something which actually helps me. We haven't got spell crit yet, no. So we're stuck with that dud craft. Okay. So that is 20k. Going up to 42,474. I'm not going to fully ramp the sigil. I don't have to because it'll be the same at a rank 1 to a rank 4 sigil. So I already forgot what that was. 44. Okay, 44 person. So that's what that is. Okay, and let's compare it to. That gives me 38.1 as a base crit. Again, that's pre-power charges. That's much, much more reasonable. We gain 600 more flat mana. And 41... So you can see it actually like, oh. 43.9. Is there a range on that or some shit? Why did that fluctuate so much? Oh, it's because of, the order of the Arcane Cloak ramped that up, that's why. 43,975. So it's actually saying that that's slightly higher. I'm guessing it's the multi that's coming into effect on that. Another thing which is important to look at is comparing the flat cold damage. So that gives me 4222 compared to 564. So even though the numbers seem to imply that this is slightly better, like a K or something, this is much better as a temporary one. I can still craft better, and I will still look for better weapons, because we gain like 600 more flat mana, which is more defense, which is more regen. And it gives me a much higher flat cold, which is important for reliably shattering, which is very, very important. And it gives me much more consistent crit chance, which will smooth out a lot of my damage. And most importantly, it looks cooler. But yeah, so in the meantime, though, I want to be looking out for... I want to keep wands on my filter, because this wand is pretty nice at the crit multi. And we want to keep looking out for better daggers with access to more multi, and I don't want to throw a bunch of currency into them because I haven't got the right bases. But I can safely throw a bunch of currency into my boots, then into my ring, then into my belt, while still passively looking for weapons. But yes, I'm Tarke. I hope that was mildly interesting or helpful. Let me know if you've got any SSF tips when it comes to gearing. Have a good day. Bye-bye.